good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and how are we doing this afternoon? Today being the first day of our broadcasting for the week, I want to say a pleasant good afternoon to you again, ladies and gentlemen. You are joining the Class in Session program. I am yours truly, Royalty James, for another wonderful one. Monday, the 29th day of September 2025. We are going to go into a political conversation today. National Party Northeast, they present, at St. Andrews Northeast, they present breakfast, lunch, and after work line. Breakfast from 7, lunch from 11:30 a.m. Breakfast will be $10 and lunch is $15. The location will be at Stallion's Place. That's next to Dunfermline Bridge. There in St. Andrews, so go be a part of that one, alright? Don't forget this Wednesday, the public meeting trains roll over to St. Andrews Northeast. That will be in the Coco in Paradise on the 1st of October. The New National Party moved their public meeting to the area. So we're inviting each and every one of you guys to come on out in your numbers to be a part of this one. I'm hoping that you guys get ready, and we are getting ready, that is, for another wonderful public meeting. So we're inviting each and every one of you guys. Don't forget that we are going to be telling you guys much more as it relates to what is happening in our country, much more as how we're intending to deal with it, so on and so forth. We want to say thanks to the persons who would have showed up last Saturday, last Friday evening, sorry. I was saying Friday, I think Saturday. Yes, I want to say thanks again to each and every one of you guys who showed up at the after work live. So we want to extend that thank you to each and every one of you guys that made yourself available for that event. And you know, there's many more of those events that is going to be happening. So we want to invite each and every one of you guys to come on out. Yes, there is also at the Cupra in Hope, the St. Andrews Southeast present Calypso and Ting, a men's evening of fun. They're sitting at the Cupra Hope, the Cupra in Hope in St. Andrews. There's Calypsonian performance, karaoke, board games, and live entertainment. Men's health walk by qualified doctor, health talk, sorry, by qualified doctor. That will be happening on a Friday. Yes, hosted by men supporting the Honorable Emmeline Peer. Yes, so this one is another one that you guys need to go on out there and be a part of. Yeah? So surprised if you guys I follow me. Alright? Yeah. So guys, let us start our conversation today. And what I want to start my conversation with today, it is both confusing in my opinion. In my opinion, it is one very confusing, and then in the other hand, it is very laughable. Yeah, I scarcely would want to use my program to read any one of these things that this person's post, especially people that might be behind fake pages or they are not identifying who they are. But yesterday on one of those pages, the person acted in the capacity of the Grenadian public. Yeah, they acted in the capacity of the Grenadian public and asking on the behalf of the Grenadian public that the NNP stop using the past Senator Nelan Franklin and John T's death as a political stunt. Well, I was in amazement when I saw this one. Hold on. All right. Yes. So I was in full amazement when I saw this one, and it amazed me first, and then it humiliated me second because I was humiliated about the the entire thing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the NMP's call for justice, as is quote unquote placed by the goons, that it is used for a political stunt, is far from the truth. Now, I could remember years back when the incident would have happened that is concerning or with the Coast Guard, yes, and the deceased at the time, well, no, deceased, Bell, right? I could vividly remember a now sitting parliamentarian who went along on a protest that was held just around the Botanical Gardens area. I don't know how many of you guys can remember that have this kind of memory. Yeah? I have this kind of memory. Yeah, so I have this kind of memory. I remembered that particular, at the time, candidate was part of the protest. He was interviewed while being a part of the process, and he called on government to step forward and assist in the investigation, because of course at the time it was stated that it was involving police officers, and at the time the minister responsible for national security, Dr. the Right Honorable Kid Mitchell, were called upon, and that investigation, as I said, was one where persons would have protested, they take it to the streets, they said whatever, and to everybody, it was the government's role and responsibility at the time to come forward and aid in that investigation. That was the call made at the time by the then candidate of the National Democratic Congress. Now, it is fascinating, and fascinating, I say, to hear persons now are asking the opposition members. At the time, the individual was not even part of parliament. He was no part of parliament. Right? No part of parliament. He was, I think, the time selected person to run in that particular constituency. Right? And he stood up for the justice of the individual. At the time, he wanted to see justice because he believed that the police or the government, right, was not doing all that was expected to carry out the investigation that he wanted to see. So now that the opposition members, parliament members, are asking for a thorough investigation to be done on what we would have seen last week of a state individual, because his burial, he served in the Senate. He is, ladies and gentlemen, of course, a state individual. Can't take that away from him. His funeral alone alluded to that. So it is amazing that members of the NNP, or I should say of the government, of the opposition, thanks for the correction, are calling for that, and are calling for that investigation to be done immediately and thoroughly. All of a sudden, it is one that is politically driven. How is it politically driven? When you're asking of individuals to carry out an investigation of a member who served the state, the probability of what is considered to even be that of poisoning. And I want to read two of the excerpt from Facebook from an individual, and I always love his pieces. This one really would assess everything that I believe I want to say today. The National Disaster Calamity Camp has a serious illiteracy problem. And that's exactly why they are so easily fooled by propaganda stunts from their fake pages, Queen Anna Augustine. Yesterday, the Asian individual, desperate for clout, screen recorded Honorable Emmeline Pierre, what is going on with me today, speaking at a political meeting, then rushed to post an NDC-funded propaganda page. And like the good little puppeteers, she tried to twist Emmeline's word to fit the NDC's dirty agenda. Fact check. Honorable Pierre never said nor implied that Dickon Mitchell was going to Venezuela. What she said was clear. One of the recent reasons given to us is that he is going to Venezuela to negotiate between Venezuela government and the U.S. government. But because Anna, being the person that she is, and followers can comprehend the proper English, they took the phrase, one of the reasons given to us, and twisted into the full-blown lie that is just ignorance, that is willful stupidity. And to make matters worse, randomly, Dickon Mitchell is currently at the United Nations in New York with regional and world leaders. Like, seriously? Where did that come from? Emily never mentioned the UN. This is just another cheap PR stunt from a wannabe propagandist with zero political IQ. And I want to match that. I want to match that saying. Because the fact of the matter is, when the page recently started, you could see it is somebody that is not intrigued about politics. You could, watch me, when you follow some of the things that are posted on this page, you can tell that this individual in no way is intrigued with politics. Right? Now, this basically jumped me into something that I didn't ready to go into yet. But anyways, I got there. But what I really wanted to read, I'll read it in a while. Now, even that piece of information that I just gave to you guys, again, is laughable. Very laughable. Because clearly, the political leader said that is the information that was given to us. Whether or not she said he was going there, or he's going to be traveling, or whatever it is you want to put it. At the end of the day, the government did allude to being part of the conversation. And let me not just say it loosely.
Big Tonight Grenada has offered to facilitate a dialogue to help ease the growing tensions in the Caribbean that has arisen with the deployment of U.S. forces in a U.S.-declared war against drug trafficking. Venezuela believes the deployment might really be aimed at seeking regime change in Caracas through military pressure. Many countries in the region have expressed concerns about the growing tensions. A Grenada statement in St. George's Wednesday said that given the current heightened tensions, Grenada is offering to be what it describes as a willing interlocutor and facilitator for peaceful dialogue. Diplomatic sources say Grenada has reached out directly to Caracas and Washington on the issue. Grenada said any further flare-ups could destabilize the entire region.
No, I'll leave this there. No, it means that, and based on, and you see sometimes when you try to miss the point and to simply go on a castigation, it's just what it is about you and the individuals that are posting. The drive of the conversation speaks to the fact that the Prime Minister continues to try to address issues, or is addressing an issue outside of state, because that is not the only one. Also the strike on Qatar. Government did allude to that again. So government is attempting to be conversation or be interlocutor, what is considered to be someone between parties to converse. And there are issues of the state at present that you are hearing very little about. That is not even making the news in some instances. Because at this stage we are, I'm certain, ignorant as it relates to the present position of government when it comes to the conversation of the visa restriction that have already affected one of our ministers of government. So government have not spoken to that in recent time. We have heard that in the initial stage when it just happened, that at the time the minister addressed it very briefly, and then that was it. I'm certain we're going on more than 5 weeks now and we have not heard anything about that. So basically, the political leader was saying, while we have issues home to address, you are out there trying to be mediator in a time when you should fix your house before you try to fix others' own. And this is the conversation. Whether or not she got it prompt on him being in Venezuela, him going to Venezuela, whether or not he's in the UN or whatever, there was a public statement that gave public knowledge that the government of to date, headed by the Prime Minister, is basically attempting to be an interlocutor, along with other Caribbean countries, to address the issue in Venezuela. Now, that in itself is what the broad scope is. Whether or not she fall far from what is, whether or not he's in Venezuela or not, you are jumping on that. We have a Minister of Resilience here and Climate Change that he didn't even know when the hurricane in Grenada passed and stood in Parliament. So always, it leaves me to wonder, at the end of the day, what is in the minds of these individuals? Right? So, he's not going to Venezuela. He's not in Venezuela. Fine. Let's take it to mean that the political leader went off on that track. But the zeroing into is that we have issues of state, important issues of state, in which the Prime Minister is not addressing, but instead they are addressing international issues. We are a needle in this hay. A needle. So at the end of the day, when you try to twist what was said, to bring an agenda as if, okay, well, she blatantly lied, right? Now the information was made public. Whether or not it was accurate, it was not misinformative, because at the end of the day, it's not like he never said that or that was never said. and she just came up with a lie and say, this is what the government of Grenada is planning to do. It was information that was made public. And basically, she would have alluded to saying, maybe, in their opinion, what she did was blatantly lied. But no, the general statement or the gist of what with the statement that is being made surrounds that the Prime Minister is addressing issues outside of the state instead of addressing our very own. So if you want to run with that, we have a Minister of Climate Resilience here that didn't even know when Hurricane Ivan passed and stood in the House of Parliament and said it. So stop it. Don't go there. Before I read what I had to read, right, we're going back to what we were speaking on. Right, so when I paid NDC surrogate like Anna Augustine takes a social media lecture Dr. Mitchells and the opposition Emmeline Pierre, telling them not to make Nelan Franklin's death political, it exposes the depth of her ignorance. This is not about politics. This is about justice for a young man who ingested a poisonous substance and died under suspicious circumstances while socializing with friends. The Franklin family is grieving, demanding answers, and they deserve support, not mockery or cheap propaganda. This said page has the audacity to call Miss Pay an illegitimate leader. That laughable. It is laughable. The post only proves that we are already known that her and the followers are political illiterates who lack the intellectual ability to separate truth from propaganda. It is one thing to be foolish, but to make yourself a public fool, I would use the word, on social media is another level of disgrace. What does the page or her fake pages, Anna News, knows about the Franklin family? Has she seen the death certificate? Does she know that the cause of death? Until she can answer those questions, she has no authority to tell the opposition how to respond. The Franklin family is not satisfied with the silence. They want justice. And as long as there is death suspicious and the compromising police force under scrutiny, the NMP leadership has a right to stand by them. Dr. Mitchell and Honorable Pay are doing what Anna and our NDC handlers will never do: speak the truth and demand accountability. The NDC government has a well-earned reputation for covering up when and over big names are involved. But no matter how hard they try to bury the truth, God will avenge Nelan's death. The opposition will continue to advocate for justice on the behalf of the grieving family. Yes? So, ladies and gentlemen, it is not here or there because I started here with this conversation, but I just didn't at the time read the correct thing. But I'm saying to you guys, this is where we at. Yes, this is not no political stunt. As far as we know, and for those of us who don't know, let me just say, Dr. Mitchell and the Franklin family, when you always would have heard Dr. Mitchell spoken about it in all different forums, how close he are to the persons within that area. And that area I'm speaking about is in Brizan. For those of us who knows clearly, he was one of the persons that was instrumental in bringing the dear young man into the whole political light. Yeah? So when we speak as if, you know, it's two persons they don't know, they just come and they're just saying that because it's politics, it's not that. It will never be that. Because both parties, Nelan being a part of the youth arm of the police of the NNP of the NNP for a very long time, yeah, have grown within a relationship, being a part of the whole relationship of the whole NNP team with Miss Spear, Dr. Mitchell, who is basically a father figure to him, and remembering when we celebrated our 50th year when they had the nice little piece, you know. So it is not something that is being done out of political mamagism. The jaundice conversation is a relevant conversation. And the justification used, there were incidences of that nature that happened under the NNP. Like, really? So persons are losing families, and your justification for somebody to stop talking about something. Well, did it happen under all you? So don't talk about it? Come on. We all got to be open-minded. Recently, the incident in Victoria many persons, even the same page, ask and been calling for justice for the deceased. And in saying that yesterday, today the same page is posting about a situation where a young lady was raped or killed or whatever, and it is a Netflix series, and the alleged individual name and all these things. So isn't that the same light that you're seeking justice? So because you're not a politician, so if a preacher asks for justice, it means that he's making it religious. We need to understand, ladies and gentlemen, the concept and thinking of some persons. It is not driven in the manner in which you guys are driving it. It is really not. Yeah? And so we just want to get that out there, that these things are not making sense. We have gone past that stage. We have really gone past that stage, and it is we are grown folks, and if Dr. Mitchell says anything, we got to do better. Now, I want to jump into the best conversation of today. Before I do so, let's start to take numbers. Get your pens out. Get your notebooks out there, because we are about to go in depth into this. Because, you see, when you're trying to make justification, when persons start to ask questions, you don't just pull paper. Eh? So any paper you pull and you see an answer, you go look to give it. But let me start with this one from last week. So let's start to take numbers. Let's start to take numbers. That's from last week.
Where that whole terminology come out. I know Treasury will be pregnant. But anyway, neither here nor there.
Well, it's obviously metaphorical.
Yeah, I know. How did the money get there? It's Grenada's money, right? And was the money squandered? Ken, from your understanding, was it a spending spree? Was it the government taking that money and just going and spend it out? Or what do you think of that money?
So firstly, this talk about $500 million is incorrect. In fact, the NDC met $341 million there, right? So all this.
So let's start. The NDC met $341. Number one, $341 million is what the NDC met in Grenada's treasury. Get it right. When okra mouth speak, listen. The mouth slippery, I tell you. When okra mouth speak, you gotta listen. Because he's saying that this is incorrect. Yeah? And so, with that incorrect statement, he gave us the actual number, which is $341 million. So $500 is a lie. 500 million, sorry. Now, the guy concerning the SGU thing, the van thing, the public relation officer, I don't know how you can pass basic maths and want to come and give justification to people who know numbers. Brother, you should have just stayed calm. It's essential to conduct thorough research. That is, and I quote from Ron Redhead's Facebook page. It is essential to conduct thorough research. The claim of $500 million in the Treasury simply does not exist. According to the official information from the Ministry of Finance, the total revenue at the end of 2022 was $63.6 million. Another number again. Moreover, all balances at the end of the year has never supported that false assertion. Ladies and gentlemen, let's step back to 2022. And the individual who held the position of Minister of Finance. Because if my memory serves me right, when the NDC took office, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell was the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, who alluded to the government leaving what he considered at the time a pregnant treasury. So answer me, is $63.63 million sung in pregnantish? So with that being said, let's take it to mean we're going to start with Ron's number. So government meant $63.6 million. But however, get your pens out. Government paid $75.1 million in terms of pension payments. So government had to put money together with what they met in order to pay pension based on Ron's figure. He posted something that alluded to the target in June of 2022 of the total revenue being 59.4, the actual cash being 63.6, the actual cash of June 2021, 61.6 in comparison thereof, variance from 2022 actual versus the target 4.2, and then the actual versus the variance versus the actual. Yeah, don't worry, don't boss all the brain about that. Yeah, we went on further, so he posted the real thing. Yeah, but you see, these guys are there. Forget that we're living in the 21st century, and we have people who know things. But let me start by reading our dear brother again, Giovanni's piece. NDC caught in their own web of lies. This incompetent NDC government needs to stop peddling propaganda and deceiving the people of Grenada. As MP for the tongue of St. George, Peter David rightfully said, every day they kept manufacturing new lies. The NDC has built its reputation on lies, half-truth and media stunts. Now, 2 years out from the next general election, they are in full propaganda mode, desperate, dishonest, detached from the reality. If you're so confident about victory, why distract the masses with lies about the NNP instead of focusing on governance? Let's not forget, before election, Deacon Mitchell promised he would borrow from banks to pay pension. After election, he boasted of a quote-unquote pregnant treasury. Now, after reckless spending and squandermania, his team suddenly claims there was only $63.6 million in the treasury. But there is a big question. If there was truly 6.3, how did you maintain to pay $75 million in retroactive payments? My very sad question. $1.2 million in dock salaries and $3.185 million in TAMCC workers. Clearly, some voodoo economy is playing here. At the lowest voice, pushing the nonsense is Ron Redded. A backbencher with no degree, no PhD, no credibility, except for a failing SGU and dabble in property hustling. Now he wants to lecture Grenadians about treasury fears. Meanwhile, the facts is there and is speaking for itself. On October 26, 2022, on October 26, 2022, the ECCB governor, Timothy Antoine, confirmed that Grenada recorded a $17.7 million surplus from January to June. Grenada is ranked as the third largest economy in the ECCU. The ECCB praised the government of Grenada under Kit Mitchell for sound fiscal management, saying this is the best period thus far for a new administration has met a healthy treasury. Thanks to the fiscal report, the FRA, Grenada had no need to borrow and pay retroactive payment. These are the hard facts. Numbers don't lie, but NDC does. Dr. Kit Mitchell and the NNP steered Grenada through a global pandemic, a financial prudence, while other Caribbean countries looked at us as a model of fiscal responsibility. That is leadership, that is competence, and that is legacy. The truth is clear. NNP left a strong, healthy economy. NDC inherited it and is now running into the ground. Grenada deserves better. Now, every time I read these clips, when I read these things from the person who posts, I just want to dawn. What Ron would have put out has to do with the budget outcome for the specific year. That is separate, ladies and gentlemen, because I had to structure it because I said I didn't want to forget to leave it in my mind. So I said, let me just structure it in a way so I could, when I read it, because that is my piece I'm reading now. Right? Apart from what government is saving to reverse ease, you can have an income of $5,000, ladies and gentlemen. In a year, and expenses is 2,000, sorry. But it don't mean that it is only $3,000 you have left. You have been saving prior. That $3,000 even can be placed in a savings for future use. If you look at the numbers that was put out in 2021, there was a surplus of $68 million. And if you look at what he posted, you don't see it in 2022's numbers because 2022 is just for what happened in that year, meaning the income and expenses for the year. Where did the $68 million go from prior? That is the point. So he's mentioning 63.6 that has been there for the year. Remember, we also had a report of $17.1 million from the start of the year to June. So we would have had $68 million prior. We would have had a fiscal space of about $17,000 before. And you're not speaking things like grants and all these things on them yet. Right? Performance in the year is just that. You save some if you wish, but the budget outcome number don't show what you have in the bank. So at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, let me explain to you what is this. When you receive your salary, let me break it down for you. If you receive your salary of $5,000, right, and you do an assessment of the month of your expenditure after you don't spend everything or whatever, right, you may have about $1,000, $1,000 to $1,500, $2,000, as I used the example earlier. Now, if you check, if I was to come to you and say, maybe, how much money you have now, as you would go in the bank sometime and you would see your savings as opposed to whatever else maybe deposit you may have. Now, if you check your years, your month expenditure, you may fall back on $2,000. Now, when you save that $2,000 with the previous maybe $50,000 you may have, it means that you now have $52 million. You don't normally stand at the amount you have. So when you come and you speak of it as it relates to the year ending 2022, remember, NNP would have lost the election in June of 2022. Now the report showed that there was $17.1 million. And that is coming from the ECCB. Now you give us a year of 63 point whatever million dollars, it's Papi Show. Because there were previous monies that were there. So the numbers that we have heard, now we have 341 million, we have $63.6 million. But this is a government, as was mentioned in what I read, that they were planning to go to the different sectors, or maybe bank or whatever institutions, and see how best they could pay pensions. My question at this stage, was it done? And if it was not done, did $63.6 million do all the pension payment and all the other things that they mentioned that they did? So who's really lying? Who's really lying? Now, I cannot take the podcaster's number. Yeah? I cannot take the podcaster's number. the podcaster's number to me leaves a question mark, because I can take his numbers. He's no way involved in government, and even if he get information, it's information that, you know, would be disseminated to him by somebody inside it. So I am falling back on the parliamentary representative's number, because he's part and parcel. In the year, he would have been in the settings. He was a cabinet member. He was a minister of government. So this is what he posted. That $63.6 million is what this administration would have basically inherited. And you boast on 71 point how much million dollars and doc salary payment and TAMCC payment, and you say it is also being mentioned that government raised police and doctor salary. Remember I explained that to you guys last week? Yeah? Because now it leaves an even bigger capacity of mismanagement. And I remember in the same clip, Perry was asking the question, would you spend solid cash? Would you have yourself $500 and that is the only $500 you have, and you just decide, you know what, I'm paying anything? And that is government we're speaking about. So based on the figures now, it leaves you even further to question. It leaves you even further to question. So government got $63.6 million inherited cash. Yeah? And they were able to do what they did within one sector. Yeah? Could you imagine that? Well, if it's not, this is not mismanagement, so I don't know what is. Because if you received $63.6 million and spent 75.1 only on the pension sector, which are basically public servants, and then in the very next year, you raise police, teachers, doctors, whoever's salary, in that very same sector again, the same umbrella of sector, and you would have spent in only that sector in excess of close to $90 million in that sector alone. When you claiming that you met next to nothing in the Treasury. So isn't that now bringing the conversation of mismanagement into light? Not me that said, them that post. These are the numbers they're giving. They're saying NNP make up this story. But when the Prime Minister's statement of a pregnant Treasury was made, because me, I don't see 63.6 being a pregnant. I mean, the podcaster owns song a little pregnantish. You could see the belly. But let us be honest. How many of these projects, even the Monkuma that had to be completed, the River Road project, and all the other projects, were there grant that was again given, or were there allocated funding for those? So are we taking away that amount? So are we not going to speak about the grants and all these, the finances that was left for things like, I mean, the Bonnet Bridge and all these completed projects, and even the Victoria Medical Station, all those fundings that was already allocated, fundings that was left there, are you omitting those amounts? Ladies and gentlemen, it is called publicity stunt. NDC is now being questioned by all on sundry, all over, in many different areas, when it comes to the question of the management of funds in Grenada. And believe you me, there is a lot of big people asking the question. There is a lot of persons asking the question. And a lot of them can't give the answer. And the only justification at this stage, ladies and gentlemen, is to come up with some idea to blame now the NNP. Because now somebody is now coming up with the idea, but you should have never said that is the amount you meet in the Treasury, you know. And so now a lot of question is being asked. When last we have heard anything as it relates to the CBI and the fundings within the CBI? Remember earlier up there was boasting as to how much they make this time and how much they make this time. When last have we had a recent number? Because ladies and gentlemen, the way I see it, and let me say to you, and I would always say this, I cannot run from this. This administration need to understand one or two things. One, the world's recovery after 2020 to 2022, the process of stable economy has just started. The world, as it relates to COVID-19, has simply just started seeing a slight stipulation in terms of our world's economy. So yes, most countries around the world are going to record a stable economy. Yeah? Because at the end of the day, we need to understand that the world, piece by piece, in a lot of different world areas, they are just coming back on their feet. With the little hiccups here and there as related to war or whatever it is, interglobal or intergeographical issues, we are seeing that there has been a stable rise in the coming back process. So yes, we expect Grenada to be stable. At this stage, there are countries that can give, there are countries that can donate, there are countries that are going, there are different sectors that are going to pump things into different areas, because at this stage they can give. But think about the NNP during COVID-19, or from 2021, 2022 early, where this very said little country at the time had to fend for itself in a way that every sector was met. Think about that yourself. That after 2021 and what was experienced in 2021, 2022, as it relates to COVID-19, and salaries were being paid and things were happening in Grenada under an administration whereby they were even wondering, who can we turn to? Dr. Mitchell still gives you the story as it relates to him going to Trinidad and Tobago and ask of the assistance of the then, well, today's Prime Minister. She was the Prime Minister back then. And he went to her just to pay salaries. He didn't put a tax on the backs of the Grenadian people. We didn't have a spike in electricity bills. And even that time, very early in 2022, mid-21, 2022, when that spike of fuel and petroleum started to hit worldwide, this government, our NNP government, stepped in to ensure that our Grenadian people don't feel the full effect of what was happening globally. So when we speak to Grenada and we hear them say, oh, the NDC is running a stable government. Every part of the world, most economies are now stable, because the tourism sectors are starting to boom in again. We are seeing a spike in sporting activities around the world. We didn't have that at the time. And the NNP government had to suffice for its Grenadian people in a time of that state. So you're getting now, and you would have gotten a wonderful treasury. You now have an economy that is stabilized, and it was said that if you're coming in and you're getting that amount, you should be happy. You should be glad. Your promise was to borrow to pay pension. You didn't have to borrow. And we're talking in excess of $75.1 million. Your numbers, not mine. And that numbers, ladies and gentlemen, was 525 persons, with a list that was already out there of 2,000. So imagine those pensioners who are collecting the same payment during COVID-19, in a time when the world saw a global pandemic. And you're telling me about leadership and money management? When it was mentioned the other night on the RIDE program, podcaster turn and he say, well, all government, so we expect them to leave money there. No, we didn't expect them. There is not the NNP who thought that was there. When we spoke on the motto of safer hands, all you say thief hands. And all your full attempt thereafter was to attempt to lock up somebody, Cox's name call, Emma's name call, or sister's name call, Polish man name call, the consultant that all you had to pay all their money now, their name called. The thousands of persons you guys sent home, millions of dollars have to now to be repaid to them. So, ladies and gentlemen, when we speak and we say those things, it is a form where NNP want to come back in power. So we saying anything? No. This is what the facts are. Your back is against the wall. You have been doing loose spending. That is my point. Yes, you're running a stable economy, but you are not prioritizing and you're doing loose spending. Never so often you look and you hear they get a little money there, they get a little donation there. But let me ask you the question, where is it going? Have you seen anything extra from this administration? Anything extra? Have you seen they stepped into the limelight to have done anything extra? The transformation? Where have been the transformation? What have we seen transformed? What have we seen transform? Nothing, and that's the facts. Nothing has transformed. Because ever so often, when we catch you doing things, your immediate thing is to compare or speak on the past administration. Nothing is wrong with you, but everything is wrong 23 years ago. Everything was wrong 23 years ago. Or the 23 years the NNP reigned. See, what a lot of persons are not saying and not speaking about is that between the time of 1990 to now, this NDC administration served for at least 13 years. And if we speak from 1990 to date, and you ask of any one of them, or you ask any Grenadian, when have they seen a better economy? When have they seen growth? When have they seen development? The only reason why they solved less is because their performance at every given time has been minimal. Every time. And that is the reason why between all the years, they come and boast about, 23 years and 23 years. We didn't get 23 years. We got 5 like every other time you all got. And because of the underperformance, because they underperformed, the Grenadian people did not give them the opportunity to reign again. Hence the reason why they have less. So when they come into you and bawl about, NNP was there 23 years, you solved for your organization solved for 13 long years. What did you do? Compare my 23. Okay, take out 13. Take out 13. Take out 13. All you forget, all you was there. What did you guys do? Ladies and gentlemen, it's not how long is the impact made. And we saw what happened when NNP won in 95. And in the next general election, the people were satisfied with their first 5 years. And they gave them another opportunity and another opportunity. They said, okay, let's give the other side an opportunity in 2008. And they had 5 years to prove that what the NNP did the 13 years before was dissatisfying. And so let's give you a chance to prove the NNP better, that you're better than them. And what did they do? Within the 4.5 or so years they had, underperformed. And And that is what people are not understanding. And we are not running from this. The facts has been there to prove that. You have underperformed every time you have been given the opportunity to govern. You get like we're coming up with these stories. And in some circumstances, when they realize, well, let me know what, let me don't blame NNP. The Grenadian people stupid. But the Grenadian people know the same set of people elect them, and then Grenada becomes the brightest country in the world. Has to be them. If not them, then who? If not them, then who? That is what it is. That is the NDC for you. So whenever you vote NNP, you dotish. Grenada real dotish. When you vote NDC, you is the best thing after sliced bread. But ladies and gentlemen, let me say this. The NDC's excuses as it relates to that $500 conversation, $500 million, sorry, is one that is being publicized to distract you from the truth. That is what it is. It is an attempt to distract you from the truth. Because we're asking the tough questions. We are asking the tough questions. And there are many persons out there, same. When we ask the questions, they're checking themselves and say, but no, how is that so in truth? How is that so? Is the NMP coming up with these stories? NMP said that it was $500 million. You wait for 2 or more years, 3 years to defend that. You know what years NNP saying that? You know what people that have been saying this about pregnant Treasury? You think it's no? From since they took office, people have been saying it in the parliament and in different media houses report. Everybody. I remember the dear brother in St. George's Northeast. What's his name again? Brother Tobias. Even when he was interviewed, he did make reference to the quote-unquote pregnant Treasury. So it fascinates me that you wait a whole, how much years to come up with these numbers? How much years? 2022, we're going at the end of 2025. As I said, more than just about going on 3 years, thereabout. And you just decide to defend that? You just decide to defend this $500 million stock? You don't find that funny? And then we start to hear all kind of numbers now. Because I can understand how 63.6 is in the Treasury. You pay 75.1 million in patriotic retroactive payments. Do the maths. Make the maths make sense. And as I said, if anybody has to allude to whatever that was said to be left there, and let me tell you something. The deacon we know would have ever met a displaced amount, or not a displaced, a dissatisfying amount of money in the Treasury and not come and report it to the Grenadian people. The Deacon Mitchell we have seen, the Prime Minister that we know of, would ever get a report of a dissatisfying amount and come and say pregnant Treasury? Man, if all you met $1 a day, from the time you reach inside, you coming back outside on the carriage and say, all your $1 meat. But as Minister of Finance, when he took office and he gave our very first report, that was his assessment. In a nutshell, that was the words he used. Pregnant Treasury. As I said to you guys, I gave you 341 million. That came from a podcaster. But again, as I said, I can use his word as concrete. I don't know, chrome out. Yeah? Can use his word as concrete. But you have a minister who sat at the time within the cabinet, and he's now giving us a number of 63.6. But the man fail assembly. The man fail assembly. You know how hard it is to fail assembly? Assembly had to fail. The man fail assembly. And today giving us maths advice, you know. See, Grenada is a wonderful place. Wonderful place. Yeah? And then when you come now and you speak on those issues. Because I tell you guys, I don't want to address people whose name is not on ballot paper. I want to get over that. If your name is on the ballot paper, we go have it out. Realize how I remove the podcaster in this whole thing and I'm dealing with the figures of the parliamentary rep. Because there's documents that he would have, you know. And he say when you research, I don't know who you research or where you get it or whatever, but this is the numbers that was given to us. Yeah? Ladies and gentlemen, my only advice to the Grenadian people at this stage, go get registered. Check your names on the different registered areas. See if your name still appears, and get ready for the next general election. Let me get rid of NDC, please. Let's get rid of them. Let me send them back to the drawing board. Maybe if we lose the next one after that, then we could say, well, they have a little experience, they may know better now. But as of now, I can't deal with these people. I can't. It would be remiss of me to accept that behavioral pattern that I've seen raising its ugly head. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, it brings us to the end of today's programming. God's blessings to each and every one of you guys for being with us here again for another wonderful, wonderful one. We're going to be back here again tomorrow. Wednesday, we do have meeting at the Coco in Paradise. So you know on Wednesday, we would not be broadcasting. We would just wait for that program. And on my page, the meeting is normally showed on my page. I don't know how many of you guys are aware of that. I do see some people viewing. Last week had about 300 or 400 persons or more, and the one before. So I've always seen who have viewed in terms of the program. And let me just ensure that I could give a number so persons are aware as to the viewing. Because the viewing, really and truly, it is always on my page. It's on Sheldon's page, and so you guys don't necessarily need to wait for us. Yeah, just go over to the page and you will be able to get it. All right, yeah. So we're seeing here, right, so we have seen for the past few meetings, we have seen numbers like 553, 762, 691 in terms of viewing on my page. So yes, you guys have been viewing, and that is really good. I'm happy to see that. You guys are really viewing. Even the General Council meeting, it was viewed. That went up to 1,381 persons. So persons are actually viewing those programs, and I'm really happy to see that. So once it's on my page, feel free, ladies and gentlemen, to always just, you know, go on there and see what is happening. It is happening this Wednesday at Paradise. With that being said, this brings us to the end of another programming, and as I said, have yourself a blessed one. We're going to catch you back here again tomorrow afternoon, same time, same place. God's blessings, and have yourself a wonderful one.